Morality is a complex subject. Questions of what's good and what's evil are at the core of how we live our lives. In the religious view, good is usually seen as obedience to God, and evil is disobedience. Usually, religions teach that obedience is rewarded, and disobedience is punished. As many have pointed out, this poses something of a dilemma. Is a person truly moral if they do what's good only out of a desire to be rewarded? Are they really good if they only avoid doing evil because they're afraid of being punished? There's also the problem of obedience being the yardstick against which goodness is measured. Surely it's good to disobey an evil command, and evil to obey an evil command. Before I get to the more complex and interesting thought experiment, let me start with a more simple one, which I've posed to several religious people. What if God were evil? I always clarify that I'm not suggesting that God actually is evil. I'm merely asking them to imagine a hypothetical alternate universe in which God is evil. In that hypothetical alternate universe, would it be moral to obey God? If the God of this alternate universe commanded rape and murder, would it be good to rape and murder, and evil not to do as God commanded? If this evil God would reward you with heaven for raping and murdering, would you rape and murder? If the evil God of this alternate universe considered acts of mercy and compassion to be the greatest form of disobedience and rebellion, and threatened you with eternal hell if you ever gave shelter to the homeless, or fed starving children, or saved a drowning person, would you? Now, in my view, a strong case can be made that the God of Jews, Christians, and Muslims, and the God of many other religions, is an evil God, and does command things like rape, child sacrifice, and genocide, among other things. Clearly, Muslim extremists are willing to carry out acts of terror in the name of their evil god, Allah, in order to earn the rewards of paradise. But this isn't the point I'm trying to make. Most of these people won't be willing to see their God as evil. So I ask them to imagine a hypothetical alternate universe. And I make it clear that we're not talking about their God, but a purely imaginary God in an imaginary universe. I had a Muslim tell me flat out that he would obey God, because it wouldn't be his place to question his creator. I told him I respected his honesty, but not his character. A person who would willingly obey an evil God for selfish reasons is an evil person as far as I'm concerned. And I don't mean to sound too harsh or judgmental. Truthfully, if I were threatened with eternal torture unless I did whatever evil things I was ordered to do by this God, I'm not sure what I would do. It might be unfair to expect anyone to be good in such a world as that. But if I obeyed, my reason for obeying would not be that it wasn't my place to question my Creator. It would be out of fear. If you had a gun held to your head and were in fear for your life, you might do some pretty horrible things, but you would do them because you were forced to do so, under threat. In a court of law, you would probably be shown at least some leniency by any fair judge and jury. But you and everyone else would still acknowledge that what you had been forced to do against your will was evil, and that the person who forced you to do this evil thing was an evil person. And if you refused to do the evil thing you were commanded to do, even if it meant certain death for you, everyone would say that you were a person of exceptional moral courage. Now I want to get to the more complex thought experiment. Imagine that in a hypothetical alternate universe, there is a good God who wants to come up with a way to test people to find out if they're really good or evil, so that he can decide who goes to heaven and who goes to hell. He knows that even the most evil person might do good and not do evil for purely selfish reasons. So he wants to be sure people don't just do good for the rewards or refrain from evil to avoid punishments. He might set it up so that people had no way of knowing that he existed or that heaven and hell were real. This way, if people chose to do good, even though they had no way of being sure that they would be rewarded for it, they would probably be genuinely good people. Of course, the best people would be the ones who would choose to do good even if they were punished for it. So he might set the world up in such a way that sometimes doing the right thing would result in negative consequences. He might set it up so that evil people would sometimes prosper and seem to be rewarded for their evil deeds. Under these test conditions, a person's moral character would be truly revealed. Of course, if the people being tested knew they were being tested, it wouldn't be an effective test. If they knew it was a test, they might still do what was right, even if it required sacrifice, because they would not want to lose the eternal reward. And they might avoid doing what was wrong, even if it was tempting, because they would fear eternal torment. So the world would have to seem pretty much as it is, with no real evidence for the existence of God or an afterlife, and some serious challenges to those who would have faith in those things. Just in case people might see through the game and realize that their lives are a test, it would be necessary to give them uncertainty about the goodness of God. Within this test, they wouldn't know for sure that God existed, but even if they believed in a God, it would be just as likely that God was evil as that he was good. Here's what I mean. It is possible that your life in this world is a test created by a good God. This good God could be testing you to see if you're truly good and if you will do what's right just because it's right without any promise of reward or threat of punishment. But it's also possible that your life in this world is a test created by an evil God. This evil God could be testing you to see if you're truly obedient and whether you'll obey him no matter what evil thing he commands you to do. Here's an interesting question. Did Abraham, in the Bible, pass the evil God's test by demonstrating his willingness to murder his son? Or did he fail the good God's test by demonstrating his willingness to obey an evil command out of a selfish desire for reward? There are three possibilities in this test. You can believe whatever you want, but you can't know for sure until the test is over. Possibility number one is that this world is all there is. There's no God, no heaven, and no hell. You might spend your whole life trying to be a good person and get nowhere for it. You could choose to do what you believe is right and end up getting crucified for it. And there's absolutely no guarantee that you'll be resurrected in 3 days. Maybe if you lie, cheat, and steal, you'll gain the whole world. And with no soul, you've got nothing to lose. What will you do? You're going to do what's in your heart. Your life is going to reveal who you really are inside. Possibility number two is that there is a God. God is good, and there will ultimately be justice. The good will be rewarded, even though they may be tested by suffering here on earth. The evil will be punished, even if their crimes seem to pay in this life. But you don't know this for sure. If you believe it, it's just a belief. Possibility number one seems more likely, and possibility number three is no less likely. Possibility number three is that there is a God, but God is evil. He doesn't reward the just or punish the unjust. What he wants is blind obedience. He wants blind faith. He is testing you to see if you'll believe that 2 + 2 = 5 if he says it does. If you doubt that and believe in your own logic and reason that the answer is 4, you'll be punished. If you demonstrate your willingness to commit murder, even against your own son if commanded, you'll be rewarded. If you accept what you're told to believe as true, despite absurdities and contradictions, you'll be rewarded. If you choose to live your life based on the knowledge of good and evil, you will surely die. If possibility 3 is true, and you live a good life, believing in possibility 1 or 2, you're damned. Of course, if you choose to believe possibility 3, you're damned if possibility 2 turns out to be true, because you'll have shown yourself to be an evil, slavish soul, willing to do any evil thing and to betray the good for 30 pieces of silver. So what will you do? Even which of the 3 possibilities you choose to believe in says something about you, and may also be part of the test. This is not Pascal's wager. There is no safe bet. No matter what you choose, you may face judgment, or maybe there's no judgment at all. So just choose. Do as you will, and be judged. I'm going to end this video with a hypothetical scenario. A girl grows up being taught to believe in the evil God. Of course, she's told that he is good, not evil. But as she gets older, she starts to question this, because she has an inner sense of right and wrong, and she's capable of moral reasoning. She can't justify in her mind that the God she's been taught to believe in is anything other than an evil monster. She can't force herself to love or worship this demonic deity. She questions whether this God even exists. After years of looking at all of the arguments and evidence for and against this God's existence, she becomes convinced that everything she was taught was a lie. It's difficult for her to abandon her faith, but she also feels a huge sense of relief and freedom. She looks into some other religions, but finds them all to also be lacking in evidence and convincing arguments. So she lives her life following her heart and mind. She does what she believes is right. Sometimes doing the right thing comes with a cost. There are also times when she compromises on her values in small ways when she feels forced to do so. But she later regrets it and wishes she had had more courage to stand up for what she believed was right. But she dies without any major regrets or deep sense of guilt. Then she gets the surprise of her life. After death, she finds herself in the presence of the God she lost faith in. He asks her why he should let her into heaven. She knows there's no point defending herself. She knows she's lived the best life she could. She wasn't perfect, but she knew that she hadn't done anything that a just person would sentence her to eternal torture for. But she also knew that this wasn't a just person. And even now that she knew he was real, she knew she could never worship this demonic deity. She was still terrified at what she knew awaited her, though. He offered her one last chance. He would spare her from burning for eternity if she accepted his deal. He would torture another innocent man in her place. She only had to accept the torture of another innocent man in her place, and she would be spared eternal torment. But she couldn't do it. She knew that the eternal guilt that would burn inside her and torment her from within would be as bad, if not worse, than the flames of hell. She would rather suffer unjust punishment herself than have someone else suffer unjustly for her. So the demonic deity threw her into the lake of fire. But to her surprise, she wasn't burned. Instead, she was bathed in pure light. It had been the final test, and she had passed. The good God of light welcomes her into heaven. It was the man who had been offered to her by the evil God to be tortured instead of her. He explains her test to her. She had been raised to believe lies, to test her, to see if the love of truth was in her. Her love of truth was proven by her willingness to reject untruth, even if it meant being rejected by many people close to her. Her love of truth led her into the next test, which was to see if she would choose to do good and to resist evil, even without the hope of eternal reward or the fear of eternal punishment. She had chosen to do what was right, just because it was right. Therefore she had passed that test. And for her mistakes and transgressions, her suffering on earth had been just and sufficient payment. Lastly, by refusing to have another innocent man unjustly tortured for her sake, she had shown that she loved justice more than she desired unjust rewards, and that she hated injustice more than she feared unjust punishments. He told her that she could ask for anything, and it would be given to her as her reward. She asked to be allowed to return to earth to help others. He told her she would be allowed to return on the condition that she would not remember anything, as the test depends on the ignorance of those being tested, but that she would retain her love of truth and justice, and that her love would be a light to the world. I'm Illuminatus Pythagoras. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share. Be sure to subscribe to my channel on YouTube, follow me on Facebook, and check out my website at illuminatuspythagoras.com. If you would like to make a donation to help support my work, you can click on the PayPal button on my website to donate. I appreciate your support. Thank you. May the light within you shine ever more brightly and illuminate your life and the lives of others. Until next time, peace.